shout out to all of the survivors that are out there, because it's truly not easy. And I know that hearing stories like this can definitely bring up feelings. And so I should have issued a trigger warning in the beginning, but I really do appreciate any survivors who are listening, and any advocacy work that anybody does around the world. As y'all already know, it is a lot going on. We are currently witnessing the trial of the century. If you thought Megan versus Tory was crazy, this is on a whole nother level. And we only on day one, we're on day two by the time that you're seeing this video. But I'm going to try my best to sort of recap my thoughts based on all of the tea and information and facts that are coming out, because my biggest gripe with this case is that there are no cameras in the courtroom, which is so annoying because come on, So so I'm gonna give shout outs to like Armand Wiggins, Tisa Tells, academics, and all of the creators who are either outside in the courtroom or whatever, who is bringing us the information, because it's really important. So as you can see, Diddy's family was all up in there. From his mother to his other children's mom, Misa Hilton, who showed up on crutches, which is really interesting because she is currently suing Mary J. Blige, and I didn't think that like we hadn't seen her that much for her to just pop up on crutches. Anyway, I think it's really important during all of this to keep Diddy's children in our thoughts, especially his girls, because the trial started off explosive. Okay, they were not waiting, and so but I do find it interesting. I literally just finished listening to Armand's recap on day one, and he talked about how like they were trying to strike out black jurors from the jury pool, which is really interesting. Yeah, I don't know who they could find that doesn't know anything about this case, and I try to be fair a lot, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to be fair in this trial, guys. And I'm gonna try, because, and I give respect to Armand because I feel like he is able to be fair even during the Megan and Tory stuff. But for him being in the courtroom, when he talked about testimony from different what's it called, witnesses, he feels like Cassie was in on this as well, because she would initiate communication with the S worker. But even in every situation where you feel like Cassie could be in on it, I'm gonna always have an excuse, because I feel like Diddy possibly knew that this day could have come, and he was trying to protect himself from the beginning, where he put the onus on Cassie to do the booking, so that if she ever talked or anything, well, you booked them, right? You communicated with them, right? You're the one who paid them, right? When they show up to the hotel, she has thousands of dollars in cash in hand ready for them. So that's how I feel like it really went, because you can tell that from the stories that we're hearing, that Diddy tried to mask his identity by having a handkerchief or a bandana around his face when they got started, and he never took it off until he felt like he was comfortable with that S worker around, which could have been 2 to 3 sessions, or who knows, like just several sessions. I definitely think the main thing that Diddy is obsessed with in all facets of life is power. And so what we've known thus far, or what we found out yesterday, was that there were male S workers. We haven't heard of any women S workers, but I don't think, like in all of the news that had came out about this case before we even got to this point, we ever heard of any women or female S workers. They made it clear, at least Cassie makes it clear to the S workers, that like, he's not gay and that he's not going to touch you or whatever. It was also said that Diddy was uncomfortable when like one of the workers would be, like getting down with Cassie, and he would be looking at Diddy, and Diddy felt uncomfortable by that. So I don't know. I don't know if I should say that's a good sign or whatever. We don't know. It's still day one. It's still very early, but it seems like, and that's my thing when it comes down to power. I think that Diddy is a very powerful man, and he has been obsessed with power from a young age, which is why we always saw those videos going viral. On Diddy, like going crazy in the office, banging on the table, talking about what he wants, and just being in charge. And when like powerful people, like when they get into their relationships and or the bedroom, they like to play with the balance of power. And I think that Diddy like to see other men take power over Cassie. And I feel like, and Diddy could be described as a cuck if we're talking in BDSM terms, if we're being honest, right? Because it was always having another man with his woman. I think it's very weird, but there's nothing in me that I would ever say that like Cassie was consensual in this. And the only other thing that I would bail I would give is that, like, let's say, like, Cassie was clearly in a toxic relationship, and these were the only people who were intimately, knowledgeable about like the things that happened behind closed doors. And so I think that like you can't really rationalize the decisions that like survivors make when they're currently in domestic situations. And I think that some of these dudes, like the S workers, could have been escapes for Cassie. If he's on the stand saying that at some point, they build a rapport and stuff like that, and he's texting her because he's witnessing the abuse that Diddy is putting on her while he's there, right? And so he's texting Cassie at random times just to get a response, as he said on the stand. And I feel like that's a way of checking, is this girl okay? Whatever, whatever, whatever. And so I think that, and even times if if Cassie were to initiate communication with a S worker that they had an established relationship with, that could also be a man. Like anytime this person comes around, I at least get a break from Diddy and all of the abuse that he's putting her through. So call me delusional or call me whatever you want, but child, I'm always gonna make an excuse because you just never know and you can't rationalize it because we've never been in Cassie's shoes. And I want to pause and say, and shout out to all of the survivors that are out there because it's truly not easy. And I know that hearing stories like this can definitely bring up feelings. And so I should have issued a trigger warning in the beginning, but I really do appreciate any survivors who are listening and any advocacy work that anybody does around the world. So I also wanted to touch on the tea that we got about Diddy's conduct in the courtroom. So I know y'all probably heard that he's wearing gray. He didn't dye his hair. And I don't even think that that's possible, for people who are incarcerated. So he's just looking like an old man. Now, they said that like one of the defense strategies is wearing light colors. So, you seem a little bit more humble or whatever. Tisa Tell, shout out to her, was talking about how Diddy was kind of shaking and trying to make it seem like he's this old man or whatever. She also talked about how Diddy was like ruffling things in his lawyers like folders in terms of paperwork, trying to make it seem like he has some sort of control. And you remember the themes that I talked about in this video was about power. It's about power and control. And right now, Diddy is in the least powerful position in his whole entire life. And so in all of these examples that people are giving about Diddy's conduct in the courtroom, that's what really makes me think about that, because he's trying to make it seem like, oh, I know what's going on. Oh, like I'm in control of this or whatever, but you're really not. And of course, like you're gonna agree with your lawyers on the defense strategy, but right now in the courtroom, they got it. And Diddy, it ain't working, okay? Because they're already talking about how you acting in the courtroom and it's not giving humble. And so you already done lost the court of public opinion. I mean, your job right now is very simple. All you gotta do is sit there, let your lawyers do the work, and look straight. You doing all this other stuff is giving very disingenuous, and it's coming across, and people are talking about it already. Now I've heard that in terms of the kids, their court conduct is really great, and I don't know if it's this, I don't believe anything anymore when it comes to celebrities, and I want to know, like, is it really authentic or is it really all an act when it comes to the kids a little bit, because it's like, I'm sure that they all have great relationships with each other and like they love one another and stuff like that, but um I think it's really hard, like to keep a stoic face in these situations, especially for their age. I think the twins may be just 18 or 19, so really young to be hearing a lot of these graphic details. And they have been leaving the courtroom once the testimony gets a little bit more graphic. And so I do wonder, will they be in the courtroom when Cassie testifies? And I wonder, like, how do they feel about all of this? Like, how do they feel about Cassie? Because if they're like 18 or 19 and him and Cassie were together for like over 10 years, then they've known her for majority of their life, kind of, like they grew up with her when they were really young. And so I really want to know like what it is from their perspective, to see how their relationship really was behind the scenes and what it is now, and everything that's being reported and alleged now. But Diddy, you should really be ashamed of yourself for putting your kids through this. Like, this is disgusting. We all have to live with our decisions, good or bad, and our kids have to find out about them once they get older. But this, you should have thought about them when you made these kinds of decisions. And I think that your obsession with power allows you to only think about yourself, because it's, you Diddy grew up in an environment where a lot of things were just normalized, right? Just very weird. A lot of weird things were normalized. And so he wanted to get to a state of power where he could do that and then more, and see how much he could push things. That's obsessed. That's how obsessed Diddy is with power. And it's dangerous, clearly, because look at where we are now. Armand was saying a lot of information, coming out on Brian Steele, saying that he's no one to play with. And it seems really interesting the way that he's able to, work the courtroom in his advantage. He reportedly destroyed one of the first witnesses, but they came back and did cross examination because the dispute was over one of the security guards at the Intercontinental Hotel, where that infamous video of Diddy and Cassie happened. And that person was supposed to do an incident report, but they left out a lot of vital details, and allegedly, like, they were saying that Diddy told Cassie to leave. And so Brian Steele really poked a lot of holes in his testimony, because he started off saying, like, you're very good at your job. You like to be very detailed. And the security guard was like, yeah, like beefing him up, making him feel confident. But he was like, well, you left all of these important details out of your report. And I don't know if I missed something, but like, when it happened, like Diddy was offering them a lot of money to get rid of the video. And so my thing is, and forgive me if I'm comparing this stuff to things that happen on TV, but like when I watch things like this that happen on TV, they're gonna pay you whatever money and tell you to change like whatever details, or don't say that in the report or whatever. So it's just like, are we gonna act like, like those things like don't happen? Like, why do you think he left those? Why do you really think he left those details out of the report? Like, of course there were threats. Like even the escort felt like he didn't want to go against Diddy because he was scared, like he heard Diddy beating Cassie in the next room. Like I do think people have a right to be scared of Diddy. And when you put together like all of the facts, because there's a lot of conspiracy out there, but when you put together the facts that are coming out, like this is some real, like shit. And it's like, why you think Cassie stayed for however long she stayed for? Like, let's be honest, like what we have to keep in mind is that the violence doesn't matter, right? Him hitting her doesn't really matter. What they have to prove is that this was a organized, like this is an organization. And I think that they already proved it on day one. It's like you're paying people to protect your reputation to conceal video footage. That's it right there. You make this work. What about Diddy's, personal, what's it called? Security guards. We've heard about the security guards at the hotel. Where were they? Because when the escort has to come in and check into the hotel to go to Diddy's presidential suite, they give the name Black at the front desk. But when you go upstairs, so you just knock on the door and Cassie answers the door in lingerie. That's what it said. That's what Armand said that they said in the courtroom. So they don't have no other security. We have to hear from from Diddy's own security. That is a huge testimony in this case to see the extent that Diddy went to cover up his tracks. That's what they need to prove in this case. And I think we've already heard some of it. So anyway, yeah, y'all, I definitely want to know what you guys are thinking thus far about the Diddy case. Who are you watching? Who is giving the best information? I watched a couple of people and I did like Armand's coverage the most. Armand also mentioned something interesting because Little Rod popped up, which is a producer who accused Diddy of stuff, as well as Young Miami. I wish he was pulled into this case, no shade. And so he popped up outside the courthouse with Tyrone Blackburn, his lawyer. And Armand said that like his case had been dropped. Is that true, y'all? Because I feel like if Lil Rod's case against Diddy had been dropped, I feel like that would be huge news, breaking news. And I don't remember hearing about that. So if you did, definitely let me know. Thank you guys so much for listening to me. We shall talk soon. Please like the video and subscribe. Peace.